to choose from, but I think the biggest one still has to be communication, being the responsibility of the communicator, i.e. myself. So if you're trying to get something off the ground, you have to take it upon yourself to get the picture in your head into other people's heads, whether it's your partners, whether it's your employees, whether it's your customers, whatever. And possibly that's something I could have worked on a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think a lot of us take for granted, that the person on the other side of the table must understand what you're saying.
I mean, just talking about Mixit, of course, you've said that it's a great success story and it has many legs and many years to go. But of course, now you've exited from the company and have talked about a lack of clarity on vision and shared vision with you and other shareholders. So how would you impart this kind of lesson to other entrepreneurs when it comes to being able to communicate effectively with other shareholders in the business?
Look, I actually think, in this particular instance, I think both for World of Avatar and for Mixit, me and my co-shareholders very much shared the same vision, and that's quite cool. Sometimes we didn't always agree on the way to get there, and I also kind of think you've got to convince everybody in the room that the path you want to take is the right path. What kind of advice I can give for people? I can just say this. When you're in this kind of situation where, whether it's with your wife or with your kids or with your partners or whatever it is, and the person's not necessarily buying into what you're saying, the problem is not necessarily the other person. The problem is yourself. And I think I'm going to take a bit of time now to reflect on how I could have done that a little bit better, and possibly I might have to rethink the way I want to do things.
Let's go back to the very beginning of starting out as an entrepreneur, or perhaps even before that, because everyone has grand ambitions of becoming a Richard Branson, a Yanni Mouton, perhaps even Alan Knott Craig Jr. But if you don't have an idea, what would you advise would be a good starting point? Do you look at specific territories where there are growth opportunities, or do you try and look at a niche area where there's a need that's not being filled? I mean, how do you start off?
Well, I've read a lot of articles and books about this, and they get a little bit cliched. I mean, in my personal experience, I just stumbled into this. So I was just given an opportunity to kind of start a business, and I did. And it wasn't a dream of mine, and I never anticipated being a business owner. And I wasn't really trying to solve a problem that I had. So that's how I got into it. I got into this kind of game. And so probably the first piece of advice is just do something. If you want to get into this game, maybe you don't have to wait for your dream. Just kind of do something by yourself. I mean, World of Avatar very much was something that I started from scratch. This was the first time I'd ever thought of it myself, funded it myself, kind of got into myself. And that was a dream. That was really very much like waking up one morning and thinking to yourself, geez, this is something worth chasing and risking everything for. And in spite of where I find myself right now, which is not necessarily where I hope to be, I do think it has been a great success over the last 2.5 years, and not something I'll ever regret in my life.
What's next for World of Avatar? What's next for you?
Well, I'm not involved in any of those companies anymore in any way. So for me personally, I'm blessed with the opportunity to take a bit of time off, and I'm going to take my family and go on like a 4-week kind of road trip through the States, and then I'm going to read a lot of books and do a bit more traveling. And I guess around about April next year, I'm going to start deciding what to do next. But I do know for sure that I'm definitely in the right place. South Africa is the best place, at least from my perspective, for taking advantage of the opportunity in Africa. And the mobile web continues to be one of the biggest waves we'll see in our lifetime. So hopefully I can stay on that.
So when it comes to being on the other side of the table, which you have had many years of experience when it comes to entrepreneurs coming to you with ideas and looking at whether to invest in them, what would you say were the key investment criteria you looked at? Did you have any benchmarks when it comes to potential or earnings or potential returns? How would you advise entrepreneurs who are looking for investors how they should kind of sell their idea?
Well, I guess I haven't got a wonderfully successful track record in picking winners, etc. But I mean, in our game, you're not going to get 100% strike rate there. So I'm not sure I have the answers. But what I've kind of picked up over the last year or so, or couple of years, is to look for scalable businesses. So not businesses where you have to hire more people in order to make more money. So you want to be able to earn while you sleep. And again, a consumer-based business is very very attractive in that way, although it's slightly more risky than B2B. Also, I would say mobile. In my specific case, that's kind of the area we look at. It's especially if you're looking at an African opportunity, it's very difficult to kind of get any kind of scale unless you're on the mobile phones. But the most important thing, I guess, at the end of the day is the person, him or herself, and whether she has a dream, like has a real passion, like. And I'm starting to get better and better at telling whether it's just a get-rich-quick scheme, or whether it's actually something that they're going to chase. Doesn't matter how much money's in it or not, and they're not going to give up until they die or win.